Hello everyone! Thanks for checking out this video. Sandra here. Today I'm talking about the Shadow and Bone Netflix adaptation that dropped yesterday. I meant to watch like a couple episodes tops every day so that I could savor them a little bit, and then I ended up just watching all of them yesterday. So there went that, but it was so good. Overall, as a fan of the original Shadow and Bone trilogy, the Six of Crows duology, I've read King of Scars, I started reading Rule of Wolves, but I haven't finished it yet. I've read The Language of Thorns, which is a short story collection that the children of Ravka would have been told growing up. And then The Lives of Saints, the Astori Sanctia, which made an appearance in the TV show. Like, I ate all of that up and I loved it. Was the adaptation 100% faithful to the books? No, it wasn't, but it couldn't possibly be 100% faithful. As a television medium, it needs to be treated different than books, obviously. So there are different liberties and embellishments that they would need to take to make it work for the big screen. And so I was happy, even as a fan of the book series, I was happy with all of the changes that were made to incorporate the crows being drawn into the Shadow and Bone world, where we meet Mal and Alina and General Kerrigan. Before I get into anything else, I just want to stress that this video is full of spoilery discussion. If you have not read the books, if you have not finished reading the books, if you have not watched the show and you don't like spoilers, please do not continue watching this video because I'm just going to talk openly about the main plot points that happened in the books and TV show. So I don't want to spoil you, but if you're still here, like, just get out of here so you don't have to hear it. I rated this show overall like 8.5, 9. I kind of waffle between 8.5, 9 for some characterization issues and pacing, but by far I loved it. I thought the music and the sound and visual effects were beautiful, just gorgeous, especially just the shots with magic in it, the shadow fold. I loved all of that. I thought the performances were amazing and did so much for the show. And then I just loved the setting and the costume design. I loved all of it. You know, the Shadow and Bone world is a very cold, rigid, militaristic place to be. And the keftas, with the richness of the color and the embroidery, the magical elements of them being bulletproof and all of that stuff, like, I thought all of that was gorgeous. One of the things that always drew me to the Shadow and Bone series was this theme of magic versus man. And so Shadow and Bone is a unique enough world to me because the Shadow and Bone world is on the cusp of developing things like, whether you want to call them airships or dirigibles and airplanes, it's before all of that, but it's still not far away. It's very close on the horizon. So you have things like rifles, and then you have this new invention, the repeating gun, like a machine gun, Gatling type of gun. So you have those advancements being made in this world, and that's something I don't really see a lot of, especially in YA fantasy, is when they're kind of teetering on the edge of that, you know, magic versus mankind's ingenuity and invention. So that's another thing that drew me to the series. So I thought the Netflix adaptation did such a great job of balancing all of these different themes with just the acting was so good, and the diverse cast that was done, I think, was an improvement on the books. So as a half Asian woman, I love the fact that the main actress, Jessie, you know, another half Asian woman was starred as Alina Starkov in this series. And I love that what they did with her being half Shu to just kind of add to the layers of conflict and depth with how she would be treated and the things that she would experience being half Shu in Ravka. I loved all of that. Even though this is more of a YA middle grade kind of audience, there were still enough adult themes and conflicts happening that were touched on that this would appeal to adult audiences too. So in that sense, I think the series was very open to audiences of all ages, and I love that because it's kind of a difficult thing to do. One of the things that I see a lot of articles out is comparing Shadow and Bone to Game of Thrones or even The Witcher, which you just can't do. Yes, they're all three different fantasy types of shows, but you cannot in any world compare Shadow and Bone to Game of Thrones or Shadow and Bone to Witcher. They're just not the same thing. So anyone that tries to bring up Game of Thrones or Witcher when they're talking about Shadow and Bone, it's just, you automatically just lose credit with me because it's not the same thing. They're not trying to be the same thing. They can't be treated the same way or compared. They're very different types of shows. With that said, I'm not going to talk about this in comparison to Game of Thrones or Witcher because it's no contest. They're not in any world similar. The only things that I had an issue with in the Shadow and Bone series, the pacing. we only get 8 episodes and everything had to be crammed in there, from the conflict between Darkling and Alina to the romantic tension that develops between them to the romantic tension between Mal and Alina. And even the world itself, yes, you know, the Grishaverse has a hard magic system. You have 3 orders of Grisha, and they all do different things. You didn't get a lot of on-screen time trying to explain or info dump, like, exactly how all of that works. And so, to me, being a fan of the series who likes to read fantasy books at a slow pace so that I can soak up all of those elements of the world building, it was breakneck speed. Like, holy shit. But they had to cram in a whole lot of things into 8 episodes. I would have liked to see 10 episodes. Maybe 2 episodes extra to give us more development between different character tension or just the world building itself. But I'll take the 8 episodes because I think it was done really well considering the limitations that they had in that aspect. While I thought the cast was beautiful and diverse and the performances were amazing, the only issue I had was with Kaz, the characterization of Kaz. In the books, he is very brutal and ruthless, very prone to violence, and a bit scarier than how he was presented in the TV show. He seemed very young and like a lighter character, and there was a lot of humor with him that kind of made him seem younger and lighter. Kaz wasn't as dark as I would have liked to see him. I'm hoping they kick that up a notch in the 2nd season. And then I thought that Kaz and Inej, that romantic tension was a bit overdone in the TV show. They were basically spoon feeding it to the audience that these two, there's like some friction there and that something is going to play out between them at some point in the future. And I just don't think that that was all that necessary. It's more subtle in the books because Kaz is so reserved about his feelings for Inej, and she's the same way too. They're both very broken characters that come together. And so I would have liked to see it happen a little more naturally and a little more secretly or more subtle than how it was in the show, because it was just like bam in your face. Those were my only like characterization issues that I had, was Kaz not being dark and gritty enough, and then the romantic tension with him and Inej was just a little bit much. But everything else, I thought the 3 storylines were nailed perfectly. The whole conflict with Darkling and Mal and Alina, it's exactly how I pictured and felt it and experienced it when I read the original trilogy, so I have no qualms about that at all. The crows, I was curious to see how in the world they were going to bring in the crows with the events of Shadow and Bone, and I thought it was done in a creative way. At times it felt a little bit forced, but I thought that it was done in a creative way. And ultimately, it laid some good groundwork for the conflicts that we're going to see in season 2 with Nina and Matthias in Hellsgate and Pekka Rollins. I just, that's a very interesting storyline, and I'm looking forward to how that plays out in the next season. And then, you know, speaking of the Nina and Matthias storyline, some people thought it was like the weakest just because there was so much romance in it, but in the books, Leigh Bardugo talked about what Nina did to kind of make Matthias hate her. We got to see how that all played out in this 1st season. I'm looking forward to how Nina tries to save face with Matthias, and then her and the crows breaking him out of Hellsgate. I'm really looking forward to that. Just because of certain things that happened with Matthias, as we all know, ultimately, I thought it was important to show how important the relationship was between those two, because he won't be around forever. I like all 3 storylines. I think they all did portray different things in the Grishaverse that were important for the audience to understand, which is how the Grisha are treated as witches, and there's this prejudice against them and their enslavement to use them, especially Ravka, how they basically enslave the Grisha and use them as a second army. Things I'm looking forward to in the 2nd season. I hope we get more Baghra. I hope we see what happened with her betraying her son's confidence and getting Alina to run away. So I'm looking forward to that playing out. I do hope that we get some Darkling Baghra flashbacks, because his childhood is heartbreaking, and just how they had to live on the run and be very wary of people that they opened up to, and how they're always changing their name. I hope that we get some Darkling flashbacks, like more of that, because they're so crucial to who he is. And I love a good tragic villain, and he is one of the best. A lot of the things that he says make sense. He wants to be that champion, that advocate for the Grisha, because of everything that he experienced in life, his centuries of life. A lot of things that he does, like you sympathize with him and they make sense, but he just ends up going about everything the completely wrong way, which is heartbreaking. Those people make the best villains. And so I hope we get to see more of that. Nikolai is one of the franchise's most beloved characters, so I'm interested to see him come on screen in the second season, and more Crows action, heist, like exciting heist action, more Jesper humor. I love it. Yeah, I binged all of these episodes so quickly, and it's Saturday. I mean, I'm going to watch the entire show again because I loved it that much. And I thought this was a very strong first season, and I'm really looking forward to season 2 because now that all of the world building is pretty much out of the way and some of those initial conflicts are established, I think the subsequent seasons, I think they're going to be a blast, and I can't wait for it. If you are a fan of the Grishaverse and you watched the show or read the books, definitely let me know in a comment below what your favorite part was or what you thought the weakest part was. I'm open to all of that good discussion. I hope you stick around. I'm going to watch the show again. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I will see you soon. Bye!